Are now live. What's up? We have with me. I'm not even sure how to say your last name. I'm not even gonna. It might be better for you to say your name so I don't say it incorrectly.
Sure, it's Neal Mukherjee.
I would not have gotten that. Mukherjee.
That's right.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you here as we continue our little quest trying to talk to the local political candidates of, at the very least, the mayor position of NDG CDN and the Loyola City Councilor life because of where I'm located at, which for me was like highly motivated off the sense that there's not a lot of English media coverage, and in an effort to be informed, it's a super challenging thing for the actual people I have to vote for. So I figure with the platform we could start like just talking to people and actually seeing who's interested. And it turned out a bunch of you were, which got me kind of excited and a lot more invested. So this may be the first Montreal election I actually have an idea of what I want to vote for that has ever happened in my life. So I appreciate you coming through, honestly, and taking the time to be with us and kind of share what you're about. Because the way I see it, you like snuck in last minute, just like appeared. I think it's with Action Montreal. I get confused with the English or French names. But either way, and so yeah, that's real dope. How we've been trying to like run these is a little bit like the story of you, so that people have an idea of who you are and whatnot. So with that, we like to go like mad chronological. You can gloss over whatever you want, but why don't you tell us where you come from in terms of like where you start your life at?
Sure. I'm from Montreal. I lived most of my life in Montreal. I went to school here. Graduated from Concordia. Was a Bachelor of Commerce degree in accounting. Went to work in Toronto and in Ottawa briefly, working both in government and in the private sector in the finance industry.
Say word.
Uh, and I've done forensic accounting work. I've worked as an investigator. I've done a lot of white collar crime work. Uh, I've
Okay.
worked on I've worked on organized crime files.
All right, yo. I want to go through this a bit more. That's actually really nifty as far as like the CSI level of your day job that it just appeared. But what part of Montreal did you grow up in?
I grew up in Westmount,
Okay, and
but it's not the rich part of Westmount. We had a 4.5 apartment that we gave up, but that my mom gave up recently for under a grand. So no, we were able to stretch a buck pretty well
yo, you just said a 4.5 for under a grand.
in Westmount. Think
That's
about
like
that, man.
that's a wild thought. Yeah, but I could imagine how there's different parts of Westmount. Um,
It wasn't the greatest apartment, mind you. The view wasn't that great, but I mean, at the time back in the 80s and 90s, it was under $500, $600
and you held that, and because of the way rent control works, you held that for a long time for it to get to 1,000.
for sure.
That's wild. So okay, tell us a bit more about like your kind of career journey a bit, because I really think that matters for people. Like if you're gonna go vote for someone, you kind of want to know a little bit about their CV, so to speak. And you just like ran through that in bullet point form. So let's run through that again, but with like more detail into like the story of what you've been through.
For sure. So after I graduated university, I got a couple of small jobs working in financial firms, mostly in banking. Then I got a serious job at Revenue Canada, working as a tax auditor. I started here off in Montreal first, but then I moved to Toronto. I was doing a lot of banking files, a lot of what they called underground economy files. And from there, I worked at Public Works.
So does that
It was the
mean like you were going through all the paperwork in to try to find all the black market stuff?
Exactly. Well, yeah. Well, part of it was black market stuff. A lot of it was legit stuff that was either being not reported properly or underreported.
Right. Say word. I guess there's probably a lot more happening in actual that world too. So, in a sense, you were just kind of getting used to the world of accounting and how people can play with numbers.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. I saw a lot of that. And then once I was done with Revenue Canada, or back then it was called Revenue Canada, Canada Customs Remedy Agency. I worked at Public Works. That was at the time when they had the sponsorship scandal.
Okay.
Back then, they had to solidify their internal controls, make sure that they had proper procedures in place. So that was a fun job because you got to sort of mold a whole system. And then from there, I got the opportunity to work on organized crime files with the RCMP. So I did that for a little bit, and then I ended up getting a job as an investigator here in Montreal with le Détective des marchés financiers, who's Quebec's financial regulator. It's like the equivalent of the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission in the U.S., except for here in Canada, it's done provincially. So I worked there for a good almost 10 years, working on all kinds of market manipulation, Ponzi schemes, insider trading, mostly stuff like that.
Yeah, that's wild. Especially in Montreal, which I understand has a lot of that kind of stuff without going into a lot of details. Uh,
Yeah.
but I guess from like a practical experience point of view, that gives you a lot of insight for how the wheels really work, because you're looking at all the greasing.
Exactly, and it was my jobs in the provincial government. I also worked a lot of Quebec for a brief period of time, but it was my jobs in the provincial government that was an eye opener to see how really crooked government can be.
Wow. So you're like auditing the government or just like stuff around the government or
Stuff around the government, but like what you see in government, like yeah, it was stuff around government. Like you go after private sector people, like people that are not part of the government, but doing pretty much the same thing that people within the government do.
wow. So that's crazy. So you did that for like a significant period of time, I guess, based on that.
Yeah,
Like this
almost a
this whole
decade.
and that's like a fiscal detective. Fair. Which is pretty practical if the hot issue is this budget issue.
Exactly.
um that's cool. So what happens after you're going through all that?
Then I ended up getting jobs at the private sector in finance, and I'm working now in the finance industry.
And how do you go from I guess the finance industry to you're like now a political candidate guy that just like appeared like that? That's like an interesting transition.
Actually, well, it was sort of the reason why I got involved in Montreal politics started off with it was right shortly after the election. There's a councillor that claimed that another candidate offered him some kind of deal or some kind of position. So we ended up, me and someone else was in the community. We ended up raising a flag about that, and one of the counselors sort of thought it was a joke, wasn't really taking it seriously, and was sort of making fun of this lady who was also mentioning this as an issue. So we pushed it to the point where UPAC got involved, the Elections Quebec got involved, but I mean they didn't find anything wrong because most likely the two people who got that were involved lawyered up and, and discussed what to say when they met with investigators. So that thing all sort of fell apart. But I mean, it sort of it showed that the city of Montreal is not really clean at all. It's dirty. I mean, the city's dirty,
I love
and
the
sort of, and
fact.
that's sort of how I got in. And then sort of we were looking at the budget issues. We were looking at why NGD, CDN, NDG is getting the screw job in terms of the budget versus other cities. We were a group. We ended up meeting with the borough mayor. She was nice enough to invite us. And we came to the conclusion that when the city says that there's a formula, that's complete bullshit. There's no formula. If there is a formula, it's like for 20% of the budget or for a insignificant amount. Most of it's done behind closed doors.
That's wild. How do you? I guess how do you figure out something like that?
Because the numbers are it doesn't jive for any type of formula. It's not right that CDN NDG or Hochelaga Maisonneuve, which is almost like the symbol of poverty in the city, we end up getting like the screw job when it comes to the budget. You got Ville Saint Laurent that gets a lot of money. It's there's something not right. If there is a formula, we're getting the crap end of it. It'd be nice for them to show us what the formula is. Let's see what is that formula.
Mm. And I guess when you're saying this, it carries the extra weight that you actually understand what white collar funny business is in like a more visceral sense. So like I feel like your passion's not the same as the other people's passions.
I I like calling out people on their bull.
I appreciate that. Don't get me wrong.
And I have there's a lot of bull going on at the city hall, at the borough office. It's there needs to be a cleanup there.
And yeah, so we just got a comment. And there's never been proof of anything showing this formula to anyone.
we've never been able to see any formulas, none at all.
And does this formula like supersede the current mayoral thing, or is it like a long-standing myth, or is it just like a current issue?
This is one counselor referred me to some document from 2014 or 2016, which gave the framework for how the city does their budgets. But when you ask for details, when you ask for any formulas or anything like that, they're unable to give it to you.
Okay. So basically, the whole budget issue made you feel very passionate on actually coming into this political situation.
Yeah. Yeah, because it does have real life repercussions. You look at our trees, for instance. If it's like a windy day, going outside is like playing Russian roulette. We have a backlog in terms of trees. Our parks are not well maintained. Our
How
roads
do
are
you mean by
crap.
a backlog in terms of trees?
There's like a 3-year backlog from the time they identify a problem tree to the time that it gets actually dealt with.
Oh, okay. This did impact me. I lived in a place that had a problem tree that had little ants in it, and these little ants invaded the entire block on Elmhurst. And you saw the city put the sign up, and I know that the building can't do anything but tell the city because the arborists have to deal with trees, and the trees just sat there, and the ants kept coming, and it was not good.
How long did that last?
We moved before it was fixed. But it was a significant period of time. It was like long enough that when you describe the length of time it takes to get rid of trees, I felt a pain point in my life that it was at least months. Like it was a significantly lengthy time, and it was contributing to why the lease didn't get renewed. And which isn't necessarily the landlord's fault, so to speak, if what you're saying is that the city takes forever to remove trees.
Yeah, and they don't have the budget. I mean, if they had the budget, I'm sure they'd be hiring all kinds of arborists to trim trees and cut them down if needed.
I hear that because I imagine arborists are expensive. Um, but that's wild. So like, what else are some of the other things that you're noticing here that like you feel are like really important?
Like parks. I'm the treasurer for the local soccer association, and sometimes the fields. I mean, we have to take crap off the fields ourselves because sometimes the city doesn't do it.
Right. So I guess you're noticing these kinds of things. How does one? So let's say you get elected, right? You go through the process. Not to say you won't, but like I'm just worded like that. But like you go through the process. Now you're in the position. How do you actually start to enact some of these changes to like work on some of these issues?
First of all, I want to see how the budget's done. I want to see how the money's allocated, and I want to sit down with all those that are doing the allocations, and we'll discuss it. Because from what I see, there aren't that many people that are really aware of how the accounting is done, what's done. When we met with the mayor, she brought along her the head of finance, the director of finance. I asked her some questions, and she brought her assistant, and it sort of died. We exchanged back and forth, and I wanted to get the details of their accounting. I wanted to get the accounting, the actual data for their accounting, and I hit a wall. Nobody was able to provide me with any of that information. But no, what I will be doing though, once I do become, if I do become borough mayor, is I will confront the city and ask them to see the formula and see how they allocate this money.
So that's like the main focus of it. Because I feel like not to like be contrarian or whatever, but like I like to just ask stuff as I think. Everyone seems to want to do that, and apparently Sue has tried to do that and was met with resistance. Maybe because of the whole party affiliation, but I mean, how does one actually get that data? And I mean that like just I don't know, like what if they say no kind of thing.
Well, so far that's what's happened to me so far. Is I've been said no, but at one point, once you get your foot in the door, it's a question of knocking on offices to see who's the ones in charge of running. The system is called Simon. The city at it's sort of a large integrated system where they have their financial planning, they have their human resources. It's all in that one system, and it's to track the one person. It's most likely a team of data experts that capture these tables that have the financial information in them.
Fair. I know what you mean by that. I mean, like I'm super into data analysis, so I'm following it on that front, and I understand like what you're coming from. Um, that's dope in the sense of what your goal is, and then how you got the whole Action Montreal party. Is that your party or is that like a separate party?
That's a party that was formed by Gilles Thibodeau. He's running for mayor of Montreal.
Okay.
Initially, I had started a party, was three other people, was in the community, a local borough party. But it didn't work out. And some people from Gilbert Thibodeau's party reached out to me. And from there, I said, sure. I accepted the offer to run for them in CDN NDG. It's more to get some popularity, raise awareness of his party. And that's mostly what my goal is to get him elected as mayor.
So like I honestly do not know who he is with regards to his name is now another name I have to Google at this point.
Yeah.
So what's this party about, and how does it like compare, I guess, against the other ones?
What we want to do is we want to run the city in an intelligent fashion, like sort of as if you were to run a business. For instance, Gilbert Thibodeau has his own several businesses. One of the major things that we want to do is reduce the amount of elected officials in city. We have more councillors and more elected officials than the city of Toronto and New York combined. So there's easy ways of saving money and saving a lot of waste. We want to give merchants a chance. We want if for instance, if there's a city construction over a 30-day period over was in front of a merchant, we want to give that merchant a tax break on that, and we want to reduce taxes in general for all merchants. We want to reduce the welcome tax, although we will be increasing it for foreign purchases of houses. But we're looking more at running the city more
Oh,
efficiently.
you should really expand on that point. That's a really good point because you gotta understand a lot of people might not be up to date with the financy stuff. So like I guess I'm following you really clear, and maybe you should emphasize on the welcome tax, what it is for the non-homeowners and such, and why increasing it for foreign folk is actually an asset.
Okay, well, the welcome tax, I mean, it's a hurdle for first-time home buyers that want to purchase a house because it adds to the sale price. But at the same time, and it's an amount, it's what they call land transfer tax in normal terms. Um, for foreigners that purchase a house, I mean, if they live in it or if they have a spouse that lives in it, that's fine. But if the house is or if the unit's purchased solely for either for holding on to it, not for doing anything at all, then we'll be charging a 20% additional tax on it to make it not to make it dissuasive, but we're locals should be having a first shot at housing here in Montreal.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm 33. I'm in that position where I'm like, oh, I think I was born a little 10 years too late to cop a house on island, and I'm going to have to leave the island if I want a house. But don't worry, there's apartments that are, I mean, condos. Condos are there, popping up all over. I'm not really personally thrilled by condos, but yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. Like, where there's that really, really not amazing looking house on Rosedale that's like $500,000 right now, and it's wild because it's really the worst look. No offense, but it's like the worst looking house on the block, and it's $500,000, and it's like, wow. And they know they can hold it because somebody will buy it at $500,000, and that's the wild part.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't even afford my own house. That's how crazy the situation is.
It is. But that's actually like a real solution. Like it's an actual like it's the first time somebody said, "Here's the thing we can do." Granted, it might take the big mare to get in.
Yeah, and there's other things as well too. For instance, we've purchased a lot of units for social housing, and these units are not being used. They're decrepit. They're not habitable. Uh, Rather than purchase out or buy out new apartments or new buildings and converting them, we want to use what we have right now. We have an inventory. Is start working on those inventories and getting those converted rather than announcing new units without actually converting what you have now on hand.
Yeah, there's a lot of really wealthy people, I believe, attached to some of those new units, though. How do you like work around that hurdle?
What do you mean?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of new units that get put up because there's a lot of wealthy real estate people that go ahead and create the big condo units instead of anyone really putting attention on the other units. A lot of that's like privately done, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
versus the city backlog, which doesn't get the same level of like funding. I don't know. Somebody was just, I think one of them was Joel, I think, was talking about the whole like group of people that cleaned up the buildings and how like there's a backlog of tasks and chores that's really ridiculous right now, and like there's just so much to do with it across the city.
Well, that's the thing. The city has like, for instance, yeah, I know the units where Joel helped clean out. Those units are owned by the city. They're owned by the central city. The borough is passing the buck, saying, "Well, it's not their responsibility. It's the central city's responsibility." Find whoever's responsibility it is, clean up that unit and make it habitable because that's one unit that's off the market. We need more units on the market. It's a part of the problem is a supply and demand issue as well too, and we're not meeting up supply because we're keeping all these things bottled up because they're crap right now. They're not being fixed.
That is definitely fair. I could see how you're looking at this really like from a position of like we got to come through and get rid of the bureaucracy and just kind of come at it pragmatically.
Things have to get done. I think a lot of civil servants and a lot of people in the city they'll hide behind this red tape. They'll just claim that we can't do it because of the red tape, and they don't want to they don't want to like cut it. They don't want to go through and make it more efficient. It's just it's frustrating.
From what I understand, there's also non-elected officials you have to deal with,
Yes, the civil
and
servants.
these get in the way and create some of this red tape. And there's a lot of negotiating and politicking that needs to be done with them.
There is, but at the same time, it has to do with how they're evaluated and how they're no, it's how they're evaluated. If they're being if no one's paying attention to how they're being evaluated or what their job descriptions are, because a lot of times they're going beyond their job descriptions. They're not fulfilling their mandates. For instance, apparently we can't. Apparently, the borough mayor herself can't get proper budgets, proper financial information. Then I'm sure it's someone's job to provide that information. Why are they not being held accountable for that? The secretaries are held more accountable for making spelling mistakes than directors are for not respecting their own job descriptions.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I guess I just like you guys basically need to have a clean sweep to really come through and create that kind of damage. Is like the what the skeptic in me would say.
No, you know what? I agree, and I think it's going to take someone with a lot of personality and with someone that's going to be, as they say in French, qui va foncer. That's gonna butt heads, but that's going to do it in diplomatic fashion. That's not going to do it in a way that's going to set up a bunch of lawsuits or a bunch of grievances from the union, because a lot of them are unionized. So you sort of have to, you have to respect that aspect of it as well too. But the managers are not unionized, by the way, so they can be. If they're not performing up to par, if they're not performing up to their task, they can be tossed out.
So you're like, I gotta find the right people to put the pressure on to make change.
Yeah.
I respect that a lot, and I mean, you put a lot of thought into this, like, a lot of thoughts into the specifics, or maybe the whole party has. I don't know, but like into the like particulars of where you can actually do things.
It kind of helps working in a dirty organization because you see how things work. How I mean, it's you see how scammy people work, and you sort of have to work around it. You find you find hacks around that.
That is true. There's a lot of things you can do. That's wild. Like it's wild to think that you have to go into like a almost scammy, more nefarious situation and kind of play there in order to understand how to fix the scammy situations in your face.
Yeah.
Um, I guess does that mean that like the nobility of politics in general kind of puts the wrong people in power almost,
There's absolutely no nobility in politics.
or the okay? Let me reframe that. The desire to look noble and have this public perception being framed where like your image matters a lot. I feel like that creates this desire to focus on nobility over maybe practicality.
Oh, it's almost all image. 95% of politics is image.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not much substance. I mean, I've met a lot in the last 2 3 years. I've met a lot of people in politics. There's not much substance there.
That's wild. I guess it's because, yeah, I'm watching the campaign play out, and I'm like, there's no disrespect to anybody that's been there, but there's a lot of like stuff that is illogical to the goal of getting young people to care. And that would be like where I'm like, because that would be honestly your other move is get the 20-year-olds on your side, and you got a really loud force of people for change. Do you guys have like any desires to like push towards the younger folk, and like how would you actually reach them?
Well, okay, here's one challenge though, because a lot of people are not registered to vote properly. You have to go check on a website to see if you're properly registered. In federal elections, if you're not registered, you can normally show up and say that you're whoever, you're this person, and you reside at this address, and you can vote. You can't do that with the city of Montreal. It'd be one of the things they can do is make reduce the barriers to vote for everyone. A lot of students come in here; they're not aware if they're allowed to vote or not. Uh, there's not much. It's not an easy thing to do for young people. And I'll be frank, I've never voted in a city election. This will be my first election where I'll be voting.
I know I voted before, but it wasn't my priority to care about who I voted for. Um, but yeah, no. That's an interesting point where maybe y'all can't do it, but somebody needs to create content to target that. Like, I actually got the Montreal voting thingy, the voting card for Montreal. It was trash. It was like look up and see if your name's there. I couldn't find my name until like it was in the top right corner in the tiniest letters. I'm like, this is a very poorly designed voting card. Government of Canada one was pretty easy to read. It was just like, my name's on it, and you got it, and it was simple. But the whole like you need to check if you're voting, like it's really similar to all the voting shit in the States right now, like all their topics with regards to the complications that various governments are imposing to reduce the number of people voting.
Oh, we got piss poor voting turnouts. I mean, it's less than 50% that come and vote, and that's even that number is really low because it's not everyone's registered to vote.
That's wild. So basically, the move would have to be to first get people to register to vote, and then worry about getting them to care about who to vote for. So you have to get them to care about registering to vote in the first place.
Yeah, and that they have to do like 6 months ago. I mean, it's not something that can be done at the last minute.
You can't register to vote now?
I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, listen, if people can,
I'm
if you're
pre-
not registered and you want to go try, but I'm not 100% sure.
so I'm pretty sure like the voting card I got was like you can register if you're not, and I'm like I hope that's true because that would be like wild to find out that people can't register that quick. I mean I don't know, but
But no, listen, go find out. If people want to find out if they can vote, go find out.
yeah,
I'm not, anyways.
no, fair enough. I hear you. But yeah, there is a responsibility to make sure it's simpler to do it if they're gonna throw an election every 4 years and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, that makes a lot of sense. But so I guess like yeah, what are some of the other issues that y'all are worried about outside of I guess some of the more Montreal shit that matters? Like, do you guys have green initiatives, things like that?
We're looking at creating an ozonization plant. It's to kill the bacteria, kill all the. It's for water treatment. We're looking at creating a plant to avoid having to flush our crop water out in the St. Lawrence River.
Wait, so I don't know anything about any of this. This is nifty. What do you mean?
Yeah, we're looking at the numbers I don't have offhand, but we're looking at creating some or getting some water purification systems that includes this ozone technology, which kills bacteria and other things that are in our water right now. We're also looking at opening the marina that's in Lachine, opening it up fully, not just this hybrid thing, but a city like Montreal needs a marina.
Yeah,
So
it makes
those
sense.
are some things that we're looking at as well too.
That's cool. Um, That's fair. You are a very concise talker.
Thank you.
I can feel like some people are more verbose. I'm like, you are answering questions faster than I'm asking. But nah, I mean, from what I understand, then basically y'all just want to get in there and find the most practical things that you can do to like make sense of the mess. So how do you?
I think also if we want to connect with the voters and younger people, I think we have to appear on shows like yours. I mean, this is our way of connecting with the young voters. I don't think
I'm
many
not
young
even
people
that
are reading
young.
the. Sorry,
I'm in my 30s. There's like a whole bunch of younger than me that has to get connected to stills.
but I mean, like, they're not going to get connected through the traditional legacy media. I mean, it's going to be through people like you.
I agree with you on that. I just don't. The one thing I don't get is the door to door campaigns that everyone's running. I'm like, most people aren't homeowners, right? Like, you're not going up in everybody's apartment building, I imagine. And if you are, I don't know if you can do that. But like, it
You
seems.
know what? And I've spoken to a lot of the political parties, and the reason why they don't go in the apartments is because they feel that apartment dwellers don't vote as much as homeowners.
I mean, it's probably facts because they don't go in the buildings and talk to the voters and introduce themselves to them. I mean, that's
And
probably.
that's why, like, I mean, you have to sneak into a lot of apartment buildings in order to do some door knocking. But I mean, no, a lot of the parties just avoid going to the apartment buildings because they don't believe that they're voters.
That's a wild thought, all things considered. Because I know a lot of people who live in apartments that would love to vote, and I've no idea. Well, I exaggerate love to vote. They at the very least want to understand the point of voting. I think there's that part of it too. A lot of people feel like it's pointless because it's a convoluted Montreal system. And I don't think a lot, I didn't even understand it. I don't really understand it except to know that it's more convoluted than I thought when I started this process. Like 450 possible people have opinions on an issue. That's wild. Like that's a lot of people to have an opinion on one issue if you ever want to get shit done. Is my like understanding of it. But yeah, y'all should get on TikTok and that kind of stuff for real. Like if you
Yeah.
and I say you with your like brevity, I'm bad for TikTok because I speak a lot. But like you just come through, just be like Neal's grievances and just 30 seconds, boom, boom, put the right hashtags towards it. Honestly, bang out 3 of those a day for the rest of the campaign. You may reach kids.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna try that.
Because that's honestly like, even myself, I'm going, I gotta find a way to be like talky on TikTok. Like, I don't know that I can do all the dancey fun shit, but I found out people be throwing up little simple green screens and like doing almost like 1 minute rant videos, and that stuff's got a purpose. Or investigative videos, and you could do things like throw up finance numbers and like be like, let me explain this to you and like break it down. And like somebody popped on the Facebook and was like, this is interesting when you were breaking down some of the finance stuff behind it, because I don't think a lot of people understand finance stuff. I got into it a little bit this year watching some economic stuff on YouTube and reading some things, but if it's really a financial issue and it's really a budgeting issue and the general population isn't fully up to par on how it could even be approached, maybe you could explain that it's possible. you know?
Maybe. Oh, that reminds me, actually, another part of our platform is we want to try to get in cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, or get the city to deal with these.
Like in what regard?
Either accept it as a form of payment, or perhaps use some other type of cryptocurrency for internal accounting wise. There's all kinds of possibilities that the city should look into in terms of
Oh, you want the
cryptocurrencies.
blockchain accountability.
Yes. Well,
Weird.
that's part of it. That's part of it. Yes.
That's a wild thought because then everybody's, in case people don't know, with blockchain, the tech behind crypto, you can't hide stuff very easily. It's like super
No,
hard.
and that's it. And if we have an internal system, like an internal currency system within the city with a blockchain, then I don't have to go through any data tables. I can open that up right there.
Say word. If you jump on smart contract technology, Montreal looks hype.
Yeah.
Like in a tech sector version of hype for the people that aren't in the tech sector. That's a interesting thought. And then people who maybe made crypto money and can't liquidate it can pay bills and taxes.
Sure.
Yeah, that's wildly interesting. I don't even know how y'all would do that, but that is a wildly like, yo, say Montreal wants to go crypto by itself, like could be like the kind of flashy things that like honestly, it's the kind of stuff I think Cordair did back in the day to get elected. It's flashy like that, and
Yeah. And there is a lot of know-how here in Montreal, a lot of crypto know-how.
yeah, I'm in the tech sector is super big here. I don't think people realize how large it. Like I work for a software company in my day job. I'm like, there's a lot of software companies. It's a stacked deck of people involved who have the know-how and just passionate about it. Like there's from like the private crypto groups to just like I've heard people talking about how they can open up data mining farms in the city and like they couldn't because of power. It's apparently too expensive. They
Yeah.
needing to go to Iceland and stuff. But like the fact that there's that much interest here means people can make it happen here from the private sector to support the ecosystem.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's like a lot of really interesting stuff. Um, what other kinds of things are y'all looking at?
Off the top of my head, I can't. Let me see if I can go on our site. But
Because I mean, honestly, Europe answered all of these questions without like actually saying anything I've heard from anybody else.
because I don't like talking with notes and whatnot. I really like I like knowing what I'm talking about. I don't like reading off a script,
Right.
and I don't like memorizing a script. Another thing that we're looking at too is a real a bike network, one that has protected bike lanes. Right now, what we have is like a patchwork. It's like a bunch of lines. If you go down Montclair Street, for instance, there's like a line that goes up to Fielding. It goes down, I think, up to their turbine where there's some lines, but it's not a real network. It's just a bunch of lines drawn on the pavement. But we're looking at getting like a real bike network, and yeah, it's probably going to reduce certain. It's gonna reduce what we have now. It's gonna add more parking space, but it's gonna create more protected space for bikes.
Yeah. I looked up how many people cycle in the city, and there was more people than I thought. I didn't realize like it was like 500,000 people at least passively cycle, which is way a lot. Like I just don't expect that. And I hear what you're saying. I cycle around a lot, and I'm on Fielding and Rosedale, so like right over there, you're like kind of a block away from those lines on the path, where you like look at Walkley and you're. But Fielding's like a little better. I don't hate the Fielding one. It's like it's not like protected, but it's at least spaced out enough to feel protected.
But the pavement between Walkley, Cavendish, and then beyond Cavendish is like it's like bumpy. It's not the smoothest pavement.
No, but the pavement from the whole this part of Fielding is pretty bad. They like clean
Yeah,
up a couple patches, so like I don't want to say that they didn't do 2 blocks this year, but that's all they did was 2 blocks this year.
yeah.
I didn't even think about that till they was all like walking around. Those movement Montreal guys was like, look at the pavement being cracked, and I'm like, oh, it is bad. You don't think about that though.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's bad in CDN NDG in general.
and this would be another thing where, in theory, budgeting and fixing up the things can fix it. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like all things considered, like you're pretty much knocked out exactly like what you bring to the table with this. Um, like I don't know what else to ask. I feel like everything would circle back to like you being like we're gonna bang out the budgeting issues via bureaucratic cleaning up and tackling it. Do you have other things that you want to share with the folk out there?
Uh, Other than vote for Gilbert Thibodeau for mayor, even if you don't vote for me, vote for Gilbert Thibodeau for mayor. He's got a smart plan, and you won't. He's boring. You won't get none of these shenanigans at City Hall. But we need boring. We need that now.
That's a very fair point. The flashy hasn't necessarily gotten us the good.
No, and we're not. Listen, we're not getting any coverage because we don't have the budget. We're not going to be spending all kinds of campaign money. I mean, I haven't had any posters put up yet. We're going to be putting up posters pretty soon, but we're not. We're on a shoestring budget. I mean, if we're running, I mean, it's the way. I mean, it's the way it is. I mean, there's not much we can do about that. But no, it's we have to manage the way that way.
Honestly, I don't know if you know who Viva Frey is, but like,
Yes, I do.
go look at his YouTube channel. That is the model to how you break away with no cash. Honestly,
Yeah.
like, I mean, regardless to what anyone feels of his content, he's an extremely freaking good YouTuber, and people should actually take a look at what he does because he has some moves, and it is big respect for his moves. However, if you have a phone, you can replicate pretty much everything he does.
I'm a big fan of his. He's awesome. No, for sure.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I met a dude in the States who watches him, and I'm like, hold up. And then I walked by him like the next day in the streets because, I mean, he lives here. And I'm like, oh, let's say a word. And so I watched some of his stuff. I don't know if I fully agree with him on everything, but I love his passion. And I like the way he puts himself out there. And that's really interesting to me. But you could
Yeah.
do
No.
stuff like that. It's honestly all. I'm not even good at this, right? I just did it, and then it happened to stumble into like people talk about it a bit more now. Like my numbers aren't crazy or anything, but if you create it, it at least creates a content pool, and it forces maybe the other candidates to go down that path. If you guys, because honestly, if you can't win in the competitive way they're doing it, come at it from the other side. All y'all bust out some TikToks and things. It would be so random and unexpected. And just don't be like Jagmeet Singh with it. I don't think his strategy was very effective. Be like a thought leader on TikTok.
Okay. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that to word, and I'm gonna plan something out.
It might not be the most successful because I don't know how many people do it, but at least if you're on the talk, the 18-year-olds might be able to find you easier.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have an Instagram, but I couldn't find it. You might want an Instagram too.
Yeah. No, I don't have an Instagram.
You might want one for the sake of the election campaigning thing, so that again, because the problem with Facebook is like most people under 27 don't have it. Like, just they don't exist on it. This is truly the old person text platform. And
Yeah.
most people are on everything else these days. I'm only saying that because I have a selfish desire to see the political landscape move into that direction. Like, doing this process has made me almost want to run next time around in Montreal, because not the big parties, all independent, just so I can make a bunch of content and force candidates to keep up. Like, I look at it like that's the only way you're ever going to make people that aren't like the people we're used to. Like, yo, the suburban gets love, I guess, but like, who reads the suburban? I don't know. Talk radios for card people. And then, like, what else is there? It's just a bunch of broken independent media, but none of y'all are throwing rap concerts. That somebody throws a concert, y'all would get other people. I don't know the legalities of it, but I'm pretty sure there's ways you can do events like that that are not just like go to the park and have like a bunch of meet and greets and stuff, right? Like, cool stuff. I don't know. A lot of that can be done with a lot less money than you'd think, and it'll be a lot more splash in the pan guerrilla marketing. So
All right. I'll think. We'll plan some stuff out like that.
that'd be dope, personally. I think so. Yeah, I'm not really sure where else to go with it. You're very concise, like I said. Once I realized it's like, yep, this guy has answered it. I mean, I guess, yeah, if you have anything else you want to throw onto it, it'd be cool. But honestly, you conveyed a lot with very few words.
Thank you. I don't like bullshitting too much. I'm not a good bullshitter.
Nah, I appreciate you coming through, though. I don't know if anyone else watching has questions. There's a few people that have popped in and out, so I'll give them like a chance to ask whatever.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But yeah, it wasn't. I'm not. I didn't get a lot of comments. To be fair, I haven't actually gotten the craziest turnout on the lives for the local politics interviews. I mean, I had some interest from like a couple of people, but turns out it's local politics, and after a minute, it's not as exciting. But no, I appreciate you coming through. I'm not really seeing anything, but I appreciate you coming through. We're still gonna have the YouTube video after all that other stuff, so that's what the benefit. The live's here, but then the content exists forever, so we can all share it and do the thing. And
Cool. And I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to be on your platform.
No, I appreciate you coming in, man. Like for me, it's like as cool as it might be to do it. Like it's a big transition in terms of legitimizing myself to have actual political candidates, and like being involved in the civic duty side of life. Like it's a little more adult than I'm used to, so to speak. But it really is on my end cool to like be here, and y'all help legitimize me as much as I help legitimize you, so it's very reciprocal. um but yeah, all of your links and stuff will be down below so they can check out. I know you're on the website, I found that before, so all of that good stuff will be there. Make sure y'all like vote, get involved, do your thing. On that note, it was really good to have you here, Neal. Live long and prosper, everybody out there.
Thanks.